Hello everyone, this is Joshua on my phone. I just quickly want to share with us some of the things that I have over the years learned and also counseled people about and taught in some way to people who are ready for marriage and have gone through the stages of courtship, where appropriate, but they have a phobia for going to a wedding ceremony, and that's because they feel that they don't have the resources or they don't have the appropriate savings to cater for the needs of their wedding and the likes of them. And this phobia has resulted in unnecessary delay and procrastination as relates to coming together as couples. Okay, I would use this opportunity to deal with some of the most important aspects of a wedding that guarantees a successful marriage. And every other thing apart from these three things I would mention is not necessary, it's not consequential to the success of a wedding or a marriage in order. So, but if you pay attention to these three things that I would mention, they would guarantee that you have done the right thing. It is a guarantee that you have done the right thing and you're on your path to a successful family. That is after you have prepared yourself adequately for this stage, then you can then move to the next stage. So the first thing you must pay attention to, which I'm not dealing with on this series, is I'm not dealing with courtship. I'm not dealing with how to know the will of God for you as touching your partner. I've left that stage, and I'm not talking about finding the right person and all that. I'm actually dealing with and specifically speaking to those who are due for marriage. They have prepared themselves for marriage. They are ready for marriage, but they don't have the strength or the understanding or the right approach to going about it, such as they feel they don't have the resources for a successful wedding or and the likes of them, and so many myths about wedding ceremonies that has prevented many people from going into wedding. So, but these three things I would mention are critical to a successful relationship after you have observed the appropriate stages of courtship and on this also integrated yourself together as couples, as one, as intending couples. Then if you then moving forward to getting married, these are the three things you must pay attention to. So the first thing you must pay attention, and these things I'm going to say, they are not things you require so much money or savings to do. In actual fact, you don't need so much savings to have a wedding ceremony. It is not necessary, but if you have the opportunity, it's all right. But where you don't have the opportunity to save enough for your life after the wedding and the wedding ceremony, it's important to focus more on the life after your marriage than the wedding ceremony. The wedding ceremony in most cases is always within a day or two, and that's also apart from the other traditional and other aspect of it. So these are the things I want you to pay attention for the sake of time. Number one, for every relationship that is prepared for marriage, one thing you must understand is that you need the parental blessings. You need the blessings of your father and your mother, or probably anyone who have stood in that space in your life, in that gap in your life, in that aspect of your life. You need their blessings as you go into your new life, and that applies to the man and the woman. You must not, under any circumstance, leave your family setting without receiving the appropriate spiritual blessings, and you must not absorb anyone into your life whom you have not received the blessings of their family before taking them into your house. That is very important. And to do this, you need majorly the father and the mother, or representatives of the father or the mother, where the father or the mother are unavoidably absent. Such person, or individuals would stand in the place of authority to release a blessing over those couples as they go into their new life. It doesn't have to be with a ceremony. If you have the resources, you can do it with a ceremony, but it doesn't have to be with a ceremony. It can actually be done in the comfort of your room, in your parlor, in your sitting room, or in an agreed location where you come together, maybe one or two people representing the family who have the endorsement of the rest of the family, also, who have the right to place a blessing on you, maybe like your father and mother, like I said. It can be within your room, and they release you in that setting. So you need their blessing. You must never, like I said, absorb anyone into your life without the proper blessings from the family authorities and all that. Doing that is irresponsible. It's irresponsible, and you don't need so much to do that. You just need to do that appropriately. So the next thing you must pay attention to is that you need a spiritual blessing. And for that to happen, you don't need the entire congregation. You need a spiritual representative, maybe your pastor or an appointed person under God for you at that time, or an anointed man of God that has spiritual authority over you and can put you in that direction. You need their blessing because they are representatives of God, and in doing that, you invoke the blessings of God into your family, into your home. The next level of next thing you must do is to go for a legal seal. These things are not in order, but I would summarize all these things in one context at the end of this session. Okay, so you need a legal seal. These are the three things you must put into considerations. You need a legal seal. Ensure that your relationship has a legally binding document or stand or position within the context or the country you are in. Ensure you do that. Maybe go for a registry, go to a court. You don't ignore a court process, or registry process because you have done a traditional wedding or a church wedding in quotes. You need a legally binding document because that is one of the most valid identification of relationship internationally, and in some cases where there is bereavement, or whoever the member of family is deceased, they have a legal position in that relationship. So that document is very important because it binds your relationship to the law of the land. Your partner or your spouse cannot illegally terminate that relationship without a legal consent or a legal process. So, and no member of the family, external member of the family, can interfere in the operations of your home without that does not have a legal input in that home. Those are, I don't want to go into too many complicated aspects, but those are areas that you would understand as you go into it, get it legal advice and perspective about it. So once you put these three things into perspective, every other thing is a ceremony. For example, having to invite everybody into your marriage is a ceremony. Having to organize a reception is a ceremony. You can have a successful wedding with just less than 10 people. And that could be your father and your mother, the father of your wife and their mother, or any of them in agreement, your pastor, yourself and your spouse to be, that's 7, and any other person you feel should be there that you have personal interest to be there. That's it. Once that is done, it can be held in a room, it can be held in an office, it can be held at any time of the day, it can be held any day of the week. It doesn't have to be Saturday, it doesn't have to be the weekend. It can be any time. You can put your wedding on a 2 o'clock lunchtime on a Monday, or on Tuesday, 2 p.m. within 30 minutes. That can be done. And that's very important because a lot of people are afraid to do that because they feel their marriage is not authenticated. I must say to you that having an elaborate wedding ceremony does not guarantee a successful marriage. Nobody knows what kind of wedding you did after you have done your wedding. What people recognize is the success of your marriage. And that's very, very important. And I would say it's better to have a broke marriage than to have a broke marriage. I'll repeat, it's better to have a broke wedding than to have a broke marriage. So those are the things you must put into considerations. And in relation to bride price, people feel I don't have the savings to cater for the bride price, and I don't, some family members will put a lot of pressure, especially on the man. This is my advice, and this is my own personal advice. I'll advise that you speak to a member of your family who is a senior member of your family, maybe your dad or your mom, someone you feel can engage with your in-laws to be, and let them discuss together what the terms of the content of the wedding, bridal price or whatever it is would be. And it must be done within your limit, within a certain capacity that must not be unnecessarily overblown. So I will advise you speak to your dad, let your dad speak to the dad of your fiancé, let them have matured conversation. Because if you get involved as a man, you get entangled into many sentiments and into unnecessary pressure because you want to please your wife to be, you want to present yourself as responsible, you don't want to tell them you don't have this. So let your members of family get involved. So, and there will be sometimes disagreements, but that disagreement does not mean that your marriage will not hold. You just have to be firm, and that will happen. And I believe that if you have parents, in-laws who are intending for their wife to be married to your daughter or son to marry to you, they would willingly oblige to some cutting down on unnecessary excesses. So having done all these three things, your marriage becomes valid. So for example, on a Friday, for example, let's say as an example, you can have to do that traditional aspect of meeting your the parental blessings on a particular day. Then the other day you go for the registry, maybe then you go for the spiritual blessing. You can have the three of them on one day. You can start in the morning by having the whole family come together, and there's a blessing on the children, and that's the father, the mother, whoever represents the family of both sides, and also the spiritual representative, maybe an appointed or an anointed, to be there in that same room, and also do that within that ceremony. Come together, fellowship. It can be within 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be very long. Then after that, you can go for a registry, or before then you can go for it. So depending on how you want it, it doesn't have to be very expensive. So every other thing you do apart from this is a ceremony. For example, inviting all your friends, choosing what kind of clothes to wear, what kind of clothes to wear, doesn't add any value to your relationship. So these are the things you must pay attention to, and take that fear away from you from going into marriage. As you go into this new phase of your life, what is most important is the life after the wedding ceremony. Every other thing is important, but the life after the wedding ceremony is most important. And that's why I said it's better to have a broke wedding than to have a broke marriage. Okay, so please pay attention to some of the things, some of my thoughts by the help of the Holy Spirit that I just noted down. I said it is irresponsible to absorb a person into your life as a partner without fulfilling the obligations you have towards them. And these obligations, like I said, is the family blessing, the spiritual blessing, and the legal seal. And you must also understand that an expensive wedding, either because you have to invite expensive guests and you want to have an expensive dress, does not guarantee or equal to a happy or successful home. There are people that feel that they need to put on a particular attire. You don't even need a suit to do a wedding. It's a tradition. Wearing a suit is a tradition. It's a Western tradition. It's an English tradition. We have absorbed that into our culture. Most people in every part of the world do that, but it's not necessary. You can put on your jeans and your t-shirts and your trainers. It doesn't make any difference. It's just about what you feel comfortable with for that special day of your life. Your wife doesn't need to put on a white dress. It's not necessary. She could put on a jeans skirt or whatever, even a jeans trouser, a t-shirt. You can logo it And whatever it's not those things, the kind of dress you put on, the kind of shoe you wear does not add anything to your marriage. If that's what adds to your marriage, the most expensive suit or dress should equal to a very successful marriage. It doesn't work. There are people that rip their suit after the wedding because the wedding collapsed. People got married very expensive wedding on Friday or Saturday, and they broke up 2 days after. So what is most important is your mindset, your personal orientation about your relationship. The greatest asset you have in that occasion is your wife to be or your husband to be. That is what you must cherish, and you must not put them under pressure. Save up for the life after. I would rather prefer that 70% of your savings or resources or gifts should be spent towards the life after the wedding. Maybe 30% or 25% should be used for your wedding. Don't ever use 50% of what you have for your wedding ceremony. That day would come and go, but you have a long time to be in that relationship, and you don't want to start that relationship on a bad note or on a very negative note. So these are my counsel to you. And you really don't need an expensive dress, you just need an affordable dress. You don't need an expensive wedding, you need an affordable wedding. You don't need any expensive ceremony, you need an affordable ceremony. And that's what I'm talking about: moderation and affordability. Don't get a loan to do wedding ceremony. It's a ceremony. The most important aspect that counts the most are the three things I've mentioned: the family blessing, the spiritual blessing, and the legal seal. Every other thing is a ceremony, and you cannot beat another man with a ceremony. So this is my own counsel as someone that God has called to speak clarity into this generation, and I'm trusting that you would be blessed by this. If you have any specific questions or answers, or probably comments, or whatever you want to suggest, or you want me to share some light on some areas, whatever area it is, please feel free to drop your comment or send a direct message. We would oblige with that and get back to you as appropriate. Thank you very much. I think that's all I have on this note. Hopefully by the grace of God, in the next marriage series that I'll be doing, because I see I'm doing this knowing fully well that this year is our 7th year in our marriage. And looking back now, there are many things we have learned and received from God that we could share with several people who have not even gone on that same route, and that would also be a blessing to them. And that's why we're doing this, and we trust that the Lord will continually help us, and as led by the Holy Spirit, to be a blessing to anyone. So people want to have a wedding planner, photography and all. That's not necessary. You have a smartphone, just take your smartphone and you can have a good picture. It's many things I could say, but don't forget that the most important thing about your wedding ceremony is the spiritual blessing, the parental blessing, and the legal seal. I pray that God, the Lord Almighty, the Lord Jesus Christ, will continually uphold you and strengthen you. We would, by the grace of God, continually be a blessing to you, even as you listen to this podcast. So please feel free to share with anyone you feel would need this, and also drop your comments as appropriate. The Lord bless you. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful season ahead. Shalom.